Over here on Capitol Hill, it is all Russia all the time right now, following Monday's press conference between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, this morning at a press conference, House Speaker Paul Ryan said that there's absolutely no question that the Russians tried to meddle in our 2016 election. But he also said what many of us already know, that there was no evidence, and there still isn't evidence, they had any material effect on the outcome of that election. Now, that's the important thing here, folks. All right, the big question when we hear about Russian meddling should be about ballot integrity, and that pretty much ends it. You know, there's still no proof of collusion, and there's no proof that they did anything that actually affected the votes that were cast at the polls in November. All right, so let's put this in perspective. We know that the Russians tried to interfere with the outcome of the election. We know they've done this since the Bolshevik Revolution over 100 years ago. They did it all the way through the Cold War, they did it after the collapse of the Iron Curtain, they still do it today. The methods that they tried to use in 2016 were a primitive spear phishing tactic to get the DNC emails, which of course any teenage programmer could pull off. It's not a high-level op. And then of course they also had a bunch of internet trolls that were constantly just spreading a bunch of different memes and stories and blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing. At the end of the day, people still had free will. They went to the polls in November. They cast their ballots. Those ballots were then counted. And the Russians did nothing to affect those final counts. Now, they could try to hack systems, they could try to do everything, but we still don't have proof that they actually affected the outcome of the election materially. And that's what you got to keep in mind when we hear about Russian meddling and Russian collusion. Unless there's any proof of a quid pro quo between the president and the Kremlin, unless there's any proof that the Russians actually got a hold of ballot machines or the software and changed the votes, there's really nothing surprising about the stuff they did try to do. Because again, at the end of the day, people cast their votes counted, and Hillary Clinton just didn't get enough votes in the right places to win the Electoral College. And primarily that, not Russians, not collusion, not meddling, not internet trolls, and not a primitive spear phishing tactic that got a hold of some DNC emails, is why she lost.
But there was enormous breaking news today. When I made the case that I did not believe that the DNC had been hacked by the Russians, in fact, that I did not believe it had been hacked at all, and made the point that the Democratic National Committee had refused to allow the FBI to inspect its servers, instead using a paid-for IT firm called CrowdStrike, I was corrected by Congressman Jackie Speer of California, who informed me that she now knew that the DNC had, in fact, turned over their servers to the FBI. This was essentially seconded by Congressman Adam Schiff of California. This came to an extraordinary surprise to Trey Gowdy, the Republican from South Carolina. Mr. Gowdy pointed out to his Democratic colleagues that FBI Director James Comey and Homeland Security Secretary Johnson had both testified under oath to the House Intelligence Committee that the FBI had not been allowed to examine the DNC servers. This is a bombshell revelation. Somebody is lying. It is either Congressman Schiff and Congressman Speer, or, of course, it is Mr. Comey and Secretary Johnson.
So the Chicago protest, when they shut all that, that was us. It was more him than me, but none of this is supposed to come back to us. Because we want it coming from people. We don't want it to come from the party. So if we do a protest and it's, DNC protest, it's right away the press is going to say partisan. But if I'm in there coordinating with all the groups on the ground and sort of playing field general, but they're the ones talking to the cameras, then it's actually people. But if we send out press advisories with DNC on them and Clinton campaign, it doesn't have that.
Because what we don't need is for it to show up on CNN that the DNC paid for X people to, that's not going to happen.
In today's hearings on Capitol Hill, Congressman Ron DeSantis pressing anti-Trump agent Peter Strzok over the discredited so-called dossier and the origin of the phony Russia probe. Strzok refused to directly answer whether crooked Hillary Clinton and the DNC actually funded that fake dossier.
The dossier was not part of it, so that's important. When did you learn the dossier was funded by Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party?
I don't think that's an accurate representation, and the department or the FBI has directed me not to answer that question based on ongoing
Well, right. So Hillary, DNC sent to Perkins Coie, who sent to Fusion, who paid, I mean, come on.
Again,
it was a political document, correct?
Former members of the Intelligence Committee. As the proud representative of Selma, Alabama, I have to tell you there is nothing more heartbreaking to me than a president who refuses to stand up for our democracy in the face of overwhelming evidence that our elections were under attack. 2 years after we first learned of Russia's hack of the DNC, we now know more about the full breadth of Russia's attack. We know that Russia targeted our election infrastructure itself and hacked computer networks containing voter information. We know that Russia's actors posted more than 3,000 advertisements on Facebook in an attempt to influence our elections. They were so bold as to sponsor pages that were named Black Activists and paid for it in no less than rubles. Their sole purpose was to sow swords of discord throughout our nation. We have to guess that they did so because they knew that having a covert influence campaign would have an effect on our election.
Really? So 3,000 ads versus 20 billion people, if not more, in the world that have internet access. And you think they influenced our vote? You guys all say these things, but you never, ever provide proof of it.
We know that Russia specifically targeted minority voters in an attempt to sow discord in the American public.
So basically, she's saying that black people are stupid and they're incapable of distinguishing between a real news story and a fake news story.
And encourage minority voters.
So, you niggas, I guess is the way she's saying it, you niggas need to get back on the plantation.
Voters to stay at home. Yes, Russia's attack was no less than voter suppression. The evidence supporting these facts is overwhelming. For starters, Russia actors paid for their ads on social media in rubles and often blatantly stated where their location would be in Russia. Second-guessing the intelligence agency's reports that Russia is responsible for interfering in our elections by this president is no less than ignorant and woefully disrespectful of the fact that these men and women of the intelligence agencies put their life on the line day in and day out to protect our democracy. And
what do you guys do? You weaponize them, and then you start attacking people like Trump and his family and Manafort and Carter Page and anybody, General Flynn, anybody you can to squeeze them, to bear false witness or break them financially. That's what Obama did, that's what you condoned, and that's what happened.
For the leader of our nation to go against their word, to throw them under the bus, if you will, was unconscionable. In this case, throw
them under the bus, bitch? You mean expose them for the fucking liars that they are?